Welcome to another edition of A Second Look at Those Stories. During World War I, they would not fight on Christmas. It would be a day of truce. And soldiers from both sides, the Americans, Canadians, British, French, and the Germans, and whoever else fought with the Germans, not really sure, would get out and they would meet in the middle of no man's land. They would talk, they would exchange gifts, and yes, they would play soccer. While these games are not registered as World Cup matches, they were seen to bring the troops together, and they infuriated some generals so much that they began firing on the soccer players to get them to go back to their trenches. Now, it's popular with stories like this to re-examine the validity of it. From doing some research, it looks like parts of this story are true, maybe not in this order. But it's a great story about how people can come together around things like holidays, like Christmas and religion, how people can come together around sports, and how we can have friendly competitions and conversations with people we disagree with. But what about those generals, making everyone go back into the trenches? Today you may have heard that we are entrenched in our positions as a nation. We are more divided than ever, and people are not about to change their minds. We're literally in trenches, firing at each other back and forth, making no progress on the front lines, just wounding the other side as much as they're wounding us. What would happen if we got out of the trenches? And a bigger question, who would be the generals firing upon us? Because it's clear that sometimes the goal is not progress, it's to keep people in the trenches. There are big companies, big organizations, big communities, big political parties, big media companies that have a vested interest in us staying in the trenches and firing at each other back and forth. They're not going to like it if we get out and try to come up with some sort of compromise. That doesn't mean that we always should. There are ideological differences that we're not going to agree on. But there are also things we can all come together about, especially looking at a big country or a big community where we often have a lot more common values than we do reasons to be in those trenches. So ask yourself, if someone's keeping you in the trench, is it for their interest or is it for yours? It's just a good question to ask. Why are you entrenched, and who is keeping you entrenched, and is it actually moving your interests along?